voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa and find Darubinia Africa with I Am Shakif. Madapiri gives us some life. Zochitika, 7 till 8 p.m. Maria Mokumalo comes in 8 till 9. We get some useful knowledge. Kalodiscopia. 9 till 10. We take a look in Africa and beyond. Africa World Hour with Sipiso Makwetla. And we close it up with some love. The Hotlines with Shailen Dikumana. 10 till 12 p.m. on Channel Africa. Across borders, across time zones. On air, online. This is Channel Africa. Africa has a voice, and that voice is Channel Africa. It keeps you in motion, speaking, singing, questioning, rising. Wake up with Rise and Shine 6 till 9. Peter and Asanda as they bring you breaking news, sharp analysis, and the voices that shape the day. At mid-morning, we get on the move with Palisa and Benjamin, digging into the African lifestyle, people, and the things that make Africa smile. 12 till 1, Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, getting in-depth, powerful stories, and the perspective you won't hear anywhere else. The Upside, 1 till 4, live and real, with Tepuho Likweleni and Nompumelelo Ngubeni. Tame Ngubeni talks money, Africa in business, 4 till 5 p.m. 5 till 6, we put on a little bit more color. Vue d'Afrique with Joël Moteba. We go to East and Central Africa.
In South Africa on Channel Africa Radio from an African perspective. We are on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, an OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. I'm Lulu Gaboo. I'm in studio with Jwalani Tulongwepe, Nosipo Zuma, and Figile Lingwati. Coming up in this hour.
We see that rape and other forms of sexual violence are being used as a way to terrorize, to punish, but also to humiliate civilians, especially women and girls.
As the world observes the International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflict, at least 25% of the Sudanese population is at risk of sexual violence being used as a weapon of war. And Rwanda and the DRC have initialed a draft agreement in an aim to stop the war in the DRC. But first up, the news with Jwalani Tulongwepe and our sports headlines with Figile Lungwati.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good day. South African politician Julius Malema, central to a row over race relations in the country, has been denied entry to the UK. The Home Office said Malema had been deemed non-conducive to the public good and it was undesirable to grant him entry. Joeli Hodi has the story.
In a letter published by local media outlet News 24, the UK government cited his vocal support for Hamas, including a speech he made after the 7 October attacks, in which he said his own party would arm the group if it came into power. The UK also raised his threat to call for the slaughter of white people and to take up arms as a reason for the rejection. This is the second time Malema has been denied entry to the UK in just 2 months. The UK said he has no right of appeal and was likely to be denied any future applications.
Speculation is rife that the former Umkhonto we Sizwe Party Secretary General Floyd Shivambu in South Africa could today announce that he's leaving the party. This after he issued a media briefing invitation set for today, which was not sanctioned by the MKP. Shivambu was recently removed as the party Secretary General. Ndebo Mogobo reports.
Hailed as the brain trust behind the EFF's policy in its formative stages and later helping to draft the MK party's constitution and build its structures, Floyd Shivambu's future seems to be hanging in the balance in the MKP, and party leader Jacob Zuma seems to have had enough of him.
Abantu sebeke baba Secretary General sebe u7 man. Noma ngabe uzazi ukuthi umkhulu uyathandwa uyikho konke, we don't care.
Political analyst Levi Nto says there is no love lost between him and the powers that be in the party.
Duduzile Zuma has always demonstrated that she disliked him, and with his removal, Duduzile's wish has been granted.
Shivambu will unveil his future plans at noon today.
The Eastern Cape Provincial Government in South Africa is holding a memorial service as it observes a day of mourning following the deaths of over 90 people hit by floods in the parts of the province. The death toll currently stands at 92. More than 4,300 people are homeless in the wake of the flooding. One of the flood victims, Maduna Ngedle, says it will be difficult to rebuild.
Other parents dependent on the social grant that they were getting through their children. There are no jobs. We don't know how people will cope, even the parents, because even though they get 350 grants, they don't cover a lot of things.
Ivory Coast says it is working with the U.S. Embassy to meet conditions that could prevent it from being included in a potential expansion of U.S. travel restrictions. Government spokesperson Amadou Coulibaly told reporters after a cabinet meeting that Ivory Coast has 2 months to provide requested documentation to U.S. authorities. A leaked U.S. State Department cable last week revealed plans to potentially add 36 countries, including Ivory Coast, to an existing travel ban list. A hospital in the Israeli town of Beersheba has been hit by an Iranian missile on the 7th day of conflict between the two countries. Videos show extensive damage and there are reports of injuries. The BBC's Don Jonathan has the story.
It's not clear how many missiles got through, but at least 7 impacts have been reported. At least 3 in Tel Aviv and 1 hitting a hospital in Beersheba further south. It comes after another night of sirens and overhead interceptions across Israel, with missile attacks just before 8 p.m. local time and a second wave just after midnight targeting Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. 60 Israeli jets hit Iran last night after Israel advised residents to evacuate areas where it was targeting infrastructure.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulo Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In our sports headlines, South African leading boxing trainer and manager Colin Nathan is confident Kafu will stand Rodriguez. And South Africa's Sport and Recreation Minister Gayton McKenzie has called out those who criticize Proteas captain to apologize. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Jwalani Chulongwepe with our news update and Figile Nwati with our sports headlines. It is 12:07 Central African Time and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Today we're doing things differently. We got to have on our screens the former Secretary General of the Umkhonto we Sizwe Party, and we'd like to cross there and hear exactly what announcement he's making as he's called for a media briefing, which is underway. Let's go to Floyd Shivambu, who is making some announcement that we are watching on very closely. Let's take a listen.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
In most instances, almost distorting just what transpired. So, as a disciplined member of Umkhonto we Sizwe, want to put on record as to what were the reasons that were given the national officials for my redeployment. The reason given in the national officials for my deployment or removal as Secretary General was that I want to overthrow President Zuma as the president of Mkondo Isizwe. That is what was said. That all the work that we're doing as Secretary General of establishing structures and identifying leaders was meant ultimately at the removal of President Zuma as president of Mkondo Isizwe. And as part of that reasoning, an extremely bizarre and fake intelligence report was produced, which was claimed to be a conversation between me and some people in the African continent, where it is alleged that despite raising money to remove President Zuma, I'm also accumulating supernatural powers to make people disappear. That is the reason why we got to, so we had to deal with superstitious issues as the basis of what happens, that there's apparently a head which I was going to be given to give to someone, and some people were going to die so that I can become president of Mkondo Isizwe. That was the intelligence report which were rejected with contempt and said that that is absolute rubbish, and said that if anyone claims to have my WhatsApp conversations, I can hand over my phone. I even offered in the meeting that take my phone and check not only the messages that you claim were about the removal of President Zuma, also check any other message about anything that I communicate as a leader of Mkondo Isizwe. Because there's a principle which I always uphold, that there is nothing that I do privately that I cannot own up publicly. Nothing, including personal relations. There's nothing that I will ever do privately which we cannot own up publicly. And we accepted the redeployment to Parliament with those misgivings that we're going to make people disappear in order to take over the leadership of Mkondo Isizwe. And in a subsequent meeting post that, another fake report was presented which claims to be WhatsApp conversations between me and someone else, where I'm reported to be saying that, yeah, I'm going to use Parliament now to take over the party. And I've got money from Stellenbosch who are going to take over the party through Parliament. They are taking me closer to where we're going to take power. And as a result, a decision was taken which was not yet communicated, that even this thing of Parliament must not happen. In fact, the former Secretary General, which is myself, must be expelled from the organization. A letter was written and was put in the briefcase of the president, who said that he's going to dispatch it as and when he feels like to discontinue my membership of Mkondo Isizwe. Those are actual facts in terms of the reason. And where does this come from? So the president of Mkondo Isizwe, whom I dearly and so deeply respect, is surrounded by political scoundrels who opportunistically use his kindness, sometimes gullibility that comes with age, to write down fake intelligence report to influence him towards the wrong directions. And the reason they do that is because they want to steal money from Mkondo Isizwe. And they are doing so now. Withdrawal of not less than 7 million rand every month from the organizational coffers. That is what divided, and that is what, and we're talking about this because we raised it internally, that stop what you are doing, because you're going to get the party deregistered as a political party, because there's no sound reason on what has been happening, and it's things that we can any reasonable.
That was the former Secretary General of the Umkhonto Wesizwe Party, Floyd Shivambu, holding a briefing the media amid uncertainty over his political future. Now he is bringing up a number of issues that he experienced in the MK Party, and basically stating that the MK Party president, that's Jacob Zuma, is surrounded by political scoundrels. We will come back to this media media briefing a little later on in the program. And just in continuing Africa Update with the normal programming, join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 406 9126 and hashtag Africa Update. You can also send us your stories or what you'd like us to focus on to our email. That's newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459. And today on hashtag Africa Update asks, Zambians have taken to social media to express their unhappiness over the delay to repatriate the body of former President Edgar Lungu back to his home country. Now, our question to you today is, what can be done for the government of Zambia and the late President Edgar Lungu's family to come to an amicable agreement? What can be done for both parties to reach an amicable agreement for the late former President Edgar Lungu to be repatriated to his home country? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's Africa Update.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Congolese Minister of Justice Constant Mutamba announced his resignation on Wednesday following an investigation into the alleged embezzlement of $19 million. Mutamba has been under investigation for allegedly embezzling funds intended to finance the construction of a prison in Kisangani, a city in the north of the country. Our Jimmy Shukrani reports from Goma in the DRC.
The DRC Minister of Justice officially submitted his resignation letter to the Ministry of Justice, a letter addressed to the President of the Republic this Wednesday in Kinshasa, the capital of the country. This comes after the start of legal proceeding initiated by the Attorney General of the Republic, who filed an indictment in the Congolese Parliament accusing the Minister of Justice of embezzling more than $90 million, a sum remarked for the construction of the Kisangani prison with the support of the DRC's partners. In his resignation letter, Constant Mutamba Tungunga accuses the Rwandan Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Olivier Nduhungirehe, as well as the leaders of AFCM23 of conducting a political conspiracy against him, the ultimate goal of which is to secure his political elimination. According to several independent political figures and analysts in the DRC, Mutambi's allegations remain unfounded and absurd for this Congolese minister. Moreover, some believe that the Minister of the Justice is trying to cover the tracks and evade the Congolese justice system, which has already begun the process of prosecuting him for 2 months ago. During his first appearance before the court in Kinshasa, Constant Mutamba stated that members of the Congolese government who were afraid of being prosecuted for their despicable acts of embezzlement wanted to sideline him so that they could continue stealing the country's money without any worries. Within, the Minister of Justice, Constant Mutamba, worked on several cases, including persecution of several political figures suspected of being M23's collaborators, as well as other political actors, which he described as a threat against the Republic. Constant Mutamba also initiated proceeding against AFCM23's leaders and sentenced them in their absence, including Bertrand Bisimwa, Corneille Nangaa, and others. Recently, the Minister of Justice demanded that the court prosecute former President Joseph Kabila Kabange following his presence in Goma, the capital of the North Kivu province, accusing him of being the true sponsor of the M23. This official resignation of the Minister of Justice is already causing tension within the Congolese political class, which are worsening daily because, according to the Congolese opposition, the Kinshasa government is using oppression in state institutions. Reporting from Goma, Jimmy Shukran Bakomera, Channel Africa News.
Africa, meet Abedi.
Yeah, that's me.
Abedi is a music lover through and through.
I really love African music.
He's got a taste for all kinds of tunes and spends his days listening to Channel Africa. Guess what? He didn't know.
Okay.
Channel Africa wants to help Abedi and all music lovers everywhere to discover even more incredible music. That is why Channel Africa is calling on all African musicians to submit their music. Musicians, remember to give us all your relevant information. Make your submissions at music@channelafrica.co.za. Submissions are your chance to be heard on radio. But sadly, they do not guarantee that you will be playlisted. All submissions will be carefully reviewed to see if they meet our station's requirement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 18 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Today on hashtag Africa Update Ask, with the Zambians having taken to social media expressing their unhappiness over the delay to repatriate the body of a former President Edgar Lungu, who died in South Africa, back to his home country. Now the question is, what can be done for a government and the family to come to an amicable agreement? I'll share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms, as it on X and Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +2763 that's 406 9126. That's hashtag Africa Update Ask, and let us know what your thoughts are in all of this that is unfolding. We are going to be speaking to a minister in the government, the Minister of Information in Zambia, and this is in regards to what is unfolding on the ground with the repatriation, which was supposed to happen yesterday and has not happened, and we need to find out exactly where these negotiations are with regards to both the government of Zambia and the family of the former leader, the late Dr. Edgar Lungu. We are trying to get a hold of the minister. It's going to be a very interesting discussion, because in it as well, we have been told that the president of the country, Hakainde Hichilema, is going to be making a media briefing. So that will definitely be something for you to tune into. And let us know your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. It is 20 after 12 Central African Time.
Big news from Channel Africa. Now you can listen and watch your favorite shows on Channel Africa. Channel Africa is streaming live on the internet on all our social media pages at Channel Africa 1 from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. Central African Time. Download the SABC Plus app or visit our website www.channelafrica.co.za and stream us live on all our social media pages at Channel Africa 1. Channel Africa now streaming for your eyes and ears only. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 21 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Now, there is another media briefing that is underway here in South Africa, which is being held by the former Secretary General of the Umkhonto weSizwe Party, Floyd Shivambu. But before we go back there, we have the Minister of Information in Zambia, that is Minister Cornelius Muitwa. Minister Cornelius, the Zambians up in arms after the repatriation of the former leader of the country, Dr. Edgar Lungu, having been stopped in South Africa at Lanseria Airport in Johannesburg. Now, the late leader's family stopped this repatriation from going ahead shortly before he was destined to fly back to his home country, which is Zambia, because of the feud between the family and the Zambian government. Good afternoon to you, and thank you for joining us. Now, just take us through, take us into your confidence and just give us an update as to exactly what is unfolding.
Well, thank you very much. Allowing the Zambian government to have a say on this impasse that has gripped not just the nation of Zambia, but indeed the region, the SADC region, the continent, and I think the whole globe. Now, what is happening is that we do believe by now that the so-called feud between the Zambian government and the family of the late president is at the moment something which is beyond logic, or reason to explain, because this is quite unprecedented in Zambia, and culturally and traditionally, it is something that is un-Zambian. And I think that it has shocked the conscience of all our citizens, including the entire continent, because as Africans, there is a way we mourn one another. There is a way we respect the dead. But with what has transpired now, I think that this is a setback in that the Zambian government, right from the time that we were taught about the condition of the former president, has done everything within its powers to be of use to the family and to ensure that everything that has to be done, relating to a former president was put in place. And we have to take this opportunity to thank the authorities in South Africa, the South African government, for the support that they have rendered to all this process, to the government of the Republic of Zambia, and also to the family of the late President Edgar Chagwa Lungu. They have paid host to him, firstly, at a time when he was undergoing treatment, and also now still paying host while he has departed. Let me now come home to the point. The point is that the government of the Republic of Zambia did not expect any of this that has really transpired, because we didn't think there was any matter so crucially outstanding as to lead to this now befittingly called an impasse. Because when the former president was in South Africa, we were told that he was in good health. There was actually a question on the floor of the House at Parliament, where a member of Parliament from the opposition sought to find out on the health of the former president, citing the fact that the former president is actually, somebody who is of public interest. And that was received violently from the members of Parliament and leadership of the Patriotic Front, who then told the nation that former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu was enjoying excellent health, and that he was even jogging in South Africa, and that he was even lecturing at some institutions, giving lectures as former president. That is what they told the nation, until such a time when there was this calamity of his untimely demise. It is
now,
at that time
Minister, because of time, I need to get as much information from you as possible for the benefit of not only ourselves but our listeners. Are you able to tell us exactly what the issues are between the government of Zambia and the former late President Edgar Lungu's family? Because we saw an attorney who came forward and stated that he had given instruction that he would not want the current president of Zambia to be around his body. Give us the details of exactly what has come out, especially from the attorney who came out and made a public statement.
Well, first of all, I must indicate that the entire country was taken aback, and that the whole citizenry were shocked with that announcement, because it was something that we didn't expect. There was no reasonable cause whatsoever to come up with that statement. They are alleging that the former president died without being taken good care of by the government of the Republic of Zambia. They are alleging that at the time he died, all his entitlements had been taken away from him, that he died a persecuted man. Now, let me place facts on record that in terms of chapter 15, which is the Former President's Benefits Act, Section 5, a former president is entitled to various amenities such as office space, transport, security, medicals, holidays to any destination of their choice once per year around the world. It's a paraphernalia of those benefits as conferred upon by the law. Now, at Section 5 of that particular law, which is the Former President Benefit Act Cap 15 of the laws of Zambia, which was enacted in 1993 and has applied to all former presidents who have retired from active politics. They've gotten their entitlements. But those who have continued with active politics or resumed active politics, they have their entitlements removed. It is a legal requirement. It is not this government. And this is precedented because former President Rupia Banda, when he returned to active politics, when the former ruling party, Patriotic Front, for the late President Edgar Chagwa Lungu was in office, and former President Rupia Banda was president of Zambia under the party MMD, they themselves used the same law to be able to revoke the entitlements of the former president as by law established. It is quite shocking today that when the Secretary to Cabinet has heard of the civil service, wrote now to say these entitlements have been revoked because you have gone back to active politics as by law established, they have categorized and characterized that as persecution, as removing his entitlements. And for goodness' sake, the truth must be said. Former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu is the only Zambian former president who has gone, who has passed on without his presidential immunity against persecution being removed from him. All the former presidents who have left office and survived, like former President Dr. Frederick Chiluba, his immunity was lifted by President Mwanawasa's administration, and he had to be arrested. He had to appear before courts of law. Rupia Banda was the second one. That also, transpired. Then later on, of course, President Michael Sata passed on, in office. Then we also recall that even former President Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, as founding president of Zambia, also was put under house arrest. None of this has happened for former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu.
Now,
Zero.
very quickly,
President
Minister,
Hakainde
unfortunately, we have run out of time, and I have to ask, what solutions is government bringing forward for the former president to be repatriated back to his home country?
The government of the Republic of Zambia is, under the leadership of President Hakainde is not tiring up in engaging the family to ensure that former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu is repatriated back to his homeland, Zambia, and be given a befitting, dignified, farewell. That is what we are working at. That is what President Hakainde Hichilema is working at to ensure that this impasse is resolved, because in our mind, it is very clear that the only thing that can be said to be true is that a few of former president's children and, of course, his wife have cases before the courts of law because they have astronomical, unexplained wealth that it is reasonably expected that they could not have attained in the last 7 years of his presidency, and that is the work of
I will ask you that you do come back to us and give us an update once a solution has been brought to the fore, and then we can also unpack other issues that may have added or compounded to this situation that is unfolding and that the world is watching as Zambia's former president is still to be repatriated back home because of this crisis between the government of Zambia and the family. Thank you so much for your time today on Africa Update, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon once there is a solution going forward.
Thank you for having me. I'll definitely be able to get back to you for further updates within the day today. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. That is Cornelius Muitwa, Zambia's Minister of Information, joining us on the line. Our news headlines up next with Jolani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Making headlines, South African politician Julius Malema, central to a row over race relations in the country, has been denied entry to the UK. The Home Office said Malema had been deemed non-conducive to the public good and that it was undesirable to grant him entry. Ivory Coast says it is working with the US Embassy to meet conditions that could prevent it from being included in a potential expansion of US travel restrictions. And finally, a hospital in the Israeli town of Beersheba has been hit by an Iranian missile on the 7th day of conflict between the two countries. I will have details on these and other stories at 1 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Well, thank you to Jolani Tulongwepe with our news headlines. Then we say good afternoon to Figile Lungati with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon, Lulu. We go straight to boxing. South African leading boxing trainer and manager Colin Nomaganjani Nathan says WBO junior bantamweight world champion Phumelela the Truth Kafu's next fight is arguably one of the biggest ever to involve a South African. Kafu will be on the 19th of next month line up in a unification bout against WBC title holder Jesse Bam Rodriguez at the Star Ford Center in Texas, USA. This will be Kafu's first title defense since he won Japan in October last year against Kosei Tanaka. Nathan is confident of pulling off yet another upset.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. Also one of the biggest fights involving a South African for international boxing. So it's just great to be part of, what's going to happen on the 19th of July, especially when we produce an upset. So looking forward to that. It's a massive, massive opportunity. Behind the scenes is often like a game of chess. You got to have the right chess piece, which we had with Phumelela, with the WBO title. And we also knew that, Bam with his agreement with Matchroom, they were putting pressure on Matchroom to get a unification going. So we knew the IBF was out.
Rodriguez, a respected and highly rated two-division world champion, also holds the prestigious Ring Magazine title, making his unification title bout a huge money spinner. Nathan says this bout will change Kafu's life on and off the ring.
Of course, I mean, look, the financial reward's massive. It's a great opportunity for South African boxing and Phumelela. Obviously, this fight's going to change his life. The previous fight changed his life, and this fight's going to propel him to another level. It's not just going to be an African star. You're looking at a global boxing star when he beats Jesse. So very excited about the fight, very excited about the stage, very excited about just another unification. It's just great for South African and African boxing.
Cricket news. South Africa's Sports and Recreation Minister Gayton McCain has called out those who criticized Proteas captain Themba Bavuma to apologize following his heroic performance in the Test Championship to lead South Africa to glory at Lord's in London.
There was a lot of unfair criticism against our captain. He was criticized by a person that don't even know the game of cricket. They used to write stuff, but what I like, they started deleting those tweets so fast. Faster than our fastest bowler. And I want to say to you, Themba, this country is truly rich because you are a citizen of this country.
And let's end it with the football news. Mohamed El Shanawi says Al Ahly must show sharpest concentration and win, not draw, when they face Palmeiras in Thursday's pivotal Club World Cup group match in New Jersey. The captain's late heroics preserved a 0-0 stalemate against Inter Miami on match day 1. The Egypt international clawing Lionel Messi's stoppage time effort out of the humid Florida night. For any sports stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fidel Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. The Midnight Snack, 12 to 3 a.m.
Interracial relationships. And now you are based in the States and you are married to a beautiful white woman, white lady.
I learned that, for us in our culture, we literally can speak our mind. I remember when we had started dating and whatnot, and, she picked up like a little bit of weight. And me, I was like, oh, wow, you must be happy in this relationship because look at you. You look great. You're even picking up some weight. And she got really, really offended. And it took I think it was about a couple of hours before I could realize that, because I could tell that she was off after that. And it took me a while to figure out what it was. Until later when I was talking to her, I'm like, you're really, really off today. And then she expressed that, yeah, because you're telling me that I'm picking on some weight. And I'm like, in my culture, when you are gaining some weight, it means you're happy.
Yes.
So that's what I was trying to imply.
The Midnight Snack, every Monday, 12 to 3 a.m. with Chanduko Ligege.
Well, thank you to Figile Ngwati with our sports update, and we say good afternoon to Nosipo Zuma with our business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. In your business news this hour, South African Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has emphasized the need to prioritize the public funding of political parties. Godongwana was speaking at the Independent Electoral Commission Political Funding Symposium in Durban today. The symposium is aimed at reflecting on the success and challenges seen over the last 4 years since the implementation of the Political Party Funding Act and a way forward. Godongwana, who addressed the media after his address, explained his call for political parties to be fully funded by the public.
Political parties, by their very nature, are public institutions. And if you don't use taxpayers' money to fund them, then you are making them vulnerable to be hijacked by individuals or corporates.
Empowering female trade has been one of the topics of discussions on the sidelines of the Commonwealth Business Summit currently underway in Windhoek, Namibia. At a plenary session focusing on female innovators, changemakers and leaders from across the Commonwealth, Dr. Emma Kadema Gaumas, Minister of Gender Equality and Child Welfare in Windhoek, Namibia delivered an address under the theme Gender and Trade, Empowering Female Entrepreneurs in the Commonwealth. She spoke about the Namibian gender equality policy.
The policy ensures that women, men, youth, persons living with disabilities, those communities from the marginalized society gain equal and equitable access to training, markets, productive resources, and technology foundations essential for women entrepreneurship and to advance trade.
Meanwhile, delegates at the Commonwealth Business Summit are also discussing how digitalization can reduce business costs for micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs. They are hoping to find ways to mitigate risks and support small businesses in engaging in international trade within the Commonwealth member state. Kelvin Gadula, a research manager at Namibia National Commission on Research, Science and Technology, explains.
We are not only coordinating research in the country, but we also inform policy. So the policy discussions that are taking place here forms part of the mandate of NCRST on how we can be able to advise the government and also Parliament in streamlining the policy advice pertaining to the deliberations that are taking place from this summit, because
oil prices have begun to edge up in the past hour after Israel said it attacked Iranian nuclear sites in Natanz and Iraq overnight, and as investors grappled with fears of a broader conflict in the Middle East that could disrupt crude supplies. Brent crude oil is now trading at $77 a barrel. Analysts have struggled to predict the extent to which the escalating conflict would influence prices, and today's price movement further evidence of this. And finally, South Korea's new administration has proposed $14.7 billion of extra government spending to support sluggish domestic demand. Now, this comes as President Lee Jae-myung makes economic recovery his top policy agenda. The supplementary budget plan, totaling $22.2 billion announced by the Finance Ministry, includes $14.7 billion of new spending to spur economic growth and support vulnerable sectors, while it will also make up for an expected shortfall in tax revenue. Now, the second extra budget of the year comes 2 weeks after Lee, who has vowed expansionary fiscal policy, won a snap presidential election on the 3rd of June. Your financial indicators: $1 US in Nigeria is trading at 1,543 naira 57, and Botswana is 13 pula 28. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shillings 60, and in Zambia is 24 kwacha 11. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 49. Russia is 78 rubles 47. India is 86 rupees 43. China, it's 7 yuan 18, and in South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 99. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $3,369 and platinum at $1,286 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $76.97 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. We are on OpenView's audio bouquet. Channel 628. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, thank you to Nosipho Zuma with our business update. It is 12:45 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. A high-level international conference on reimagining democracy in Africa and the Global South is underway at the Department of International Relations and Cooperation Conference Center in Pretoria in South Africa. Now, the event is hosted by the International IDEA in partnership with the Open Society Foundations, the African Union, Switzerland's Federal Department of Foreign Affairs, the European Union, and South Africa's Department of International Relations, that's DIRCO. It comes at a critical moment for democracy globally amidst shifting geopolitics, democratic backsliding, and growing calls for inclusive governance. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by Dr. Chiku Emeka Eze, Director of Democratic Futures in Africa, Open Society Foundation. Dr. Eze, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update. Dr. Eze, are you there?
Thank you for having me.
All right, great stuff. Now, Dr. Eze, how critical is this dialogue in addressing the gap between widespread support for democracy in Africa and a growing openness to military intervention among citizens?
I think the first thing we must underscore is that the citizens are beginning to not just is not about welcoming the military, but it is about the contradiction of what the civilians are doing that is not democracy. So what the citizens are asking for is good governance. And to that extent, they are now saying that if the military is able to provide good governance, so be it. So if democracy is not delivering democracy goods and equal opportunity and economic empowerment and social cohesion and inclusivity, then the citizens have a right to ask for any other option other than what democracy is delivering.
Now, given the complex history of colonialism and dictatorship in the global south, how can this conversation help in confronting and overcoming those legacies in Africa's democratic development?
We have a lot in common in the global south and what some people now call the global majority. We cannot copy the Western ideology and paste in Africa, for example, and war. The actors are different. The times are even different. In the first place, the development of the state and the state architecture was not meant to succeed. It was meant to continue to serve the purposes of the colonial masters. So what this dialogue is doing, and just like the name implies, is that we want to reimagine the kind of democracy we want to see in Africa. And to that extent, we are coming together through this platform as the Global South to now ask the critical question: what should be the kind of democracy we will practice in Africa? What kind of leadership, governance will work for Africa? And how do we, as it were, based on our peculiar context, establish the plan for what we regard as good governance and leadership in Africa and the Global South in general?
Now, in your view, what role does the youth of the continent, women, and marginalized group play in reimagining a more inclusive and representative democracy on the continent, as you've just touched on?
At the Open Society Foundation, we call it new actors and new voices. They are no longer docile. So any of our leaders that continue to think that the youths and the women are still docile, the person will be on the wrong side of history. So you have considered the structure or the failure of governance in a situation where the executive pocketed the parliament and the judiciary. It is now the youths organizing not just in terms of political ideology, but in terms of economic justice. Not only organizing in the urban centers, they are organizing in the urban centers and in urban areas. And what we are seeing in open society is that this is where our investments should go. We want to leave this opportunity provided these new actors and new voices to reimagine democracy to the extent it will not just be people-centered, but our policies will.
All right, Dr. Eze, our network is not the greatest, but let's try and wrap this up very quickly. With the ongoing conflict and just political instability in a number of African countries, how can democracy be strengthened to deliver both stability and equitable development?
Our understanding, and this has been done, researchers have proven that to be correct, is that the majority of conflicts we have in Africa are governance deficit related. So if you deal with the issue of governance deficit, you will indirectly be responding to conflict management. So what we need to invest in is not just thinking of conflict resolution, because at the end of the day, people will ask some critical questions. What do we have to eat? If people are hopeless and hungry, they are pushed to violent conflicts. But when people are having hope, not just in governance, but in their tomorrow, then they can sit down in a dialogue format and discuss about their issues. So we need to deal with the critical issue of governance in the continent. Once we do that, we can now have a proper negotiation about critical minerals and about how Africa should relate with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
To that extent,
Dr.
Africa
Eze, we are going to leave
will
it
be
there
used.
for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much for having me.
That is Dr. Chukwuemeka Eze, Director, Democratic Futures in Africa Open Society Foundation, joining us on the line.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
As the world observes the International Day for the Elimination of Sexual Violence in Conflict, Gender Agency UN Women estimates that 12.1 million people, or 25% of the Sudanese population, is at risk of sexual violence being used as a weapon of war. UN News' Emma Traeger-Lewis spoke to Esmeralda Alabre, who leads the UN Reproductive Health Agency, the UNFPA's work to counter gender-based violence in Sudan.
It's since the onset of the conflict, actually, that humanitarian actors, including the GBVA, has raised the alarm about the sexual violence being used as a weapon of war. So it's not only now, but tragically, we see the evidence has continued to grow. And that's why you see in March, we had more and more actors also mentioning it. And when we see the report that we receive from across the country and states and areas still affected by active conflict and displacement, we see that rape and other forms of sexual violence are being used as a way to terrorize, to punish, but also to humiliate civilians, especially women and girls. One of the things I want us to remember is that survivors most of the time has been displaced multiple times, as we've seen in the conflicts. And what they have described is a pattern of violence that subject intent. Basically, we see when rape is being done during attack on village, when we have slavery, forced marriage, or abduction, it is way as a mean to really target women and girls and to terrorize them. And we know, unfortunately, this physical injury, but also trauma and stigma are really lasting, a long-lasting damage, not only for the survivors themselves, but also for the community as a whole. Sudan has signed actually the second cooperation framework between the United Nations and Sudan on conflict-related sexual violence. And what we hope is with this new cooperation framework, that's more concrete but also coordinated action will be taking not only to provide comprehensive support to survivors, but also that will prevent this violation. Because what we've seen, accountability remain a big issue, and that's why we see also that these attacks being perpetrated. So we really hope that this will strengthen not only the national system, but also we empower more local actors. We're talking about the women-led organization. We're talking about the civil society that will help also prioritize the right, but also the dignity of the survivors during the response.
Whenever most people think of GBV response, they tend to focus on the immediate aftermath, yet survivors still face the consequences of such violence years later. How does UNFPA make sure that their response is not only immediate, but also that it accompanies survivors on the long term?
This question that you just mentioned is really something that many survivors often, I would say almost all the time, raise to us. Because what we've seen is like while the world we are focusing, and even as humanitarian actors, we are focusing on the violence they endure in the moment, but also many of them tell us the real struggle also often begins after. And I want to clarify that yes, immediate care is vital.
And that was UN News' Emma Traeger-Lewis speaking to Esmeralda Alabre, who leads the UN Reproductive Health Agency, UNFPA's work to counter gender-based violence in Sudan. And it is that time of the day where we say a happy Thursday and good afternoon to Tabuhole Koleni of the Upside team.
Hello, Lulu. How are you?
Well, thanks, and you?
Fantastic.
Great.
Interesting conversations that we'll be having today. The National Shelter Movement of South Africa, NSMSA, has revealed shocking evidence that there is a rise in intergenerational relationships. That is blesser, blessee relationships, sugar daddy relationships, and raising alarms such as 82% of young African women in impoverished areas are engaging in sexual relations with older men. We're going to unpack this this finding and find out what the long-term psychological effects are for these young people. And what are the causes? They were citing poverty, high unemployment, but it's rather alarming that the numbers, or there's a rise in intergenerational relationships in South Africa.
Can I throw a spanner?
Yeah.
In this?
Sure.
What about the young men and older women? Is it not being looked at? Because this is where we start losing the young men who fall through the cracks, who may be going through
100%.
the exact same thing.
100%. I don't know if those numbers are as...
They may not be, but the fact of the matter is... It is a reality. It is
happening. And I recently, a couple of days ago, I saw a tweet on social media. A 17-year-old boy in a relationship with a 30-year-old woman.
Wow.
And so the rise of intergenerational relationships in South Africa, actually in the world is rather alarming.
Yeah.
And then we talk about pen fine art in Africa. I didn't even know there was such a thing as pen fine art. This is taking a pen and drawing and creating artwork out of it. But we want to find out, how do you go about selling that? How do you go about marketing it, especially on the African continent where we are so used to a certain style of art? How is pen art being adopted on the African continent? And then our final conversation, we head on over to the Vilioti Fashion Institute for their free winter workshop. They are teaching you the business of fashion. So if you're a fashionista, want to get into this industry, stay tuned for that conversation. That's all coming up. And then what caught your eye? No doubt we'll be talking about what's happening on screen right now with Floyd.
Yes, he's not leaving, but he is going to consult the people with regards to forming a new party. Do we need another new party in South Africa?
I am so perplexed as to why this is even happening in the first place. I don't understand. I'm so confused about this conference.
I think my producer Tracy came out and said, they're going to fire him from the MK party.
Immediate effect.
The gift that keeps on giving. Well, that's how we wrap Africa Update today. Continue with us on our social media platforms. And thank you to our producer, Tracy Boomgard, our technical operator, Mondli Mdambo, and social media, Elaine Bengani. It's been a good day. Let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. The stalemate between the Zambian government and former President Edgar Lungu's family continues. The late leader's family stopped the repatriation from going ahead shortly before he was destined to fly back to Zambia over a feud with the Zambian government. Lungu died in South Africa earlier this month. Zambia's Minister of Information Cornelius Mitwa says the government will continue to engage the Lungu family.
The government of the Republic of Zambia is, under the leadership of President Hakainde Hichilema, is not tiring up in engaging the family to ensure that former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu is repatriated back to his homeland, Zambia, and be given a befitting, dignified, farewell. That is what we are working at. That is what President Hakainde Hichilema is working at, to ensure that this impasse is resolved.
Former MK Party or Umkhonto weSizwe Party Secretary General Floyd Shivambu has announced that he's kicking off the consultation process on whether he should start a political party in South Africa. Shivambu has broken his silence on the reasons for his removal, saying it was due to